Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Indie Diaries podcast, but this time it is a special one. Welcome to Footnote number 7 with Pirate PR, who's a very well-known figure in the, Twitter scene for now, right now in the game development community, but also in general as a great PR person who's just helping a lot of indie developers just get their dream game in front of the right people. So Robby is doing an amazing job, and so I wanted to do a special episode with him, and fortunately he's very passionate about one topic, which is PR scams. So for this Footnote, we're going to dive into PR scams, how to recognize them, how to identify them, how to fight them, and also we're going to wrap up with some best practices on PR and just general game marketing online, just to find some coverage and whatnot. So, before we get into the episode, I want to shout out to my amazing patrons who are Zagini, Fishbone Dev, and Peleg. You guys are incredible, and I love having your support every single month. It makes such a big difference. If you two listeners want to give me a little Christmas gift and support the show, you can go to patreon.com/theindiediarist and just check out my tiers that start from as little as £1.25. But now let's get into Footnote number 7 with Pirate PR. Alright, hello everybody, and welcome to a new episode of the Indie Diaries podcast. This is a Footnote episode. It's been a while since I did one of these. They're bonus episodes that are disconnected. They're a little bit unrelated to the Indie Diaries that I do usually, which are interviews with guests, as you know. But this one is about, I'm going to let my guest introduce the topic, and also, we'll talk about it together. But I have with me here Robby from Pirate PR, who some of you will know, because I know that some people in my community already either work with Robby or they've heard of him. So you're kind of a VIP here, but I'll let you introduce yourself, Robby.
A very important pirate.
Yeah, very important pirate. I like that. Yeah. If you don't mind saying a few things about yourself, what you do with Pirate PR, and how you support indie developers with your work.
Sure. So, hi, first of all, I'm Robby from Belgium. I work for Pirate PR, and when I say work for, I'm the founder, the only employee, the boss, like one-man wrecking crew of marketing and PR currently. Because I'm only by myself, I really also laser focus on a few things. And that's mostly sending out press releases and helping indie developers send out keys, hopefully to people who don't resell them, but actually create content for them. So that's the intention.
Okay, yeah, and thank you, Robby. I mean, I know that your work is very much appreciated in the community, and I have some people in my community as well who know you very well. And today we're going to talk about something that is very dear to you. Well, you told me when we talked the first time, which is PR scams. So identifying PR scammers and understanding exactly what they are, how they work. And why it's important to be educated about it, because you might be losing a lot of money to some very shady people. And then towards the end, we will have some time to talk about the common PR challenges and best practices for specifically indie developers. But let's start with that, actually, with identifying scammers in PR. So when we talked about it, I had absolutely no idea that not no idea, but I hadn't conceptualized the fact that scams and PR scams would be so common and so much so much of a problem.
Basically.
Yeah, it's basically a business. So do you want to give a little bit of context on PR scammers and the growing prevalence of this practice?
Yep. So they've been around for ages, for as long as people have been sending out free codes to creators, to press. Mm-hmm. People have been trying to say, I'm that person you're trying to reach, or being an imposter. That's been around for ages, but right now the tools have become so much easier for everybody to just do all of those things in bulk, that it's become more lucrative. Before they were trying to get 1 key, 2 keys, and they had to send emails one by one. Currently, they can just program to go out by 100 at a time. you'll see this if you're a developer and you're releasing your game. The closer you'll get to releasing pressing the big green button on Steam or any other platform going release my game, the more emails you'll get. And unfortunately, it's not people to congratulate you with your upcoming launch, but it's just, hello, I would like to have 3 keys.
Yeah.
Most of the time without even a please in there. They get their your email address from Steam itself. I personally don't even know where I should be able to get that contact information for a developer, but they have their tools, it seems. And yeah, it happens in bulk. Luckily, because it happens in bulk, it's also a little bit more prevalent, and you'll see like, okay, something's wrong here. Why am I getting 100 emails in the same minutes that look very similar? That's because they're trying to scam you. But the surprising thing for me is it looks so obvious. It seems so obvious. This is basically like badly written emails telling people, give me multiple codes and magic will happen and you will see great success. Yeah. And then I'm shocked that developers still fall for this. And especially for like the low effort scams that happen like 100 at a time, that they still fall for this is
I suppose
to me. And that's also why you see so many posts of ours on Twitter about informing people and trying to educate them a little bit, because I just feel hurt every time I see someone say like, oh, I sent this person a key, and I'm like, why?
Yeah, and I love the kind of work that you do in your Twitter or X account on trying raising awareness of this issue, because honestly, without your profile, I wouldn't have known that these were necessarily issues. But again, I don't work in PR. I work in content, as I was telling you before we started recording, and also as my listeners know. So it's great that you do that, and it reminds me of a YouTube channel that I used to follow some time ago, which is Scammer Payback. Don't know if you've heard of that, but it's really funny and interesting as well, because this guy basically tries to screw over scammers and try to understand where they are, so you can send the police, or maybe just flag them to whoever then needs to do whatever they need to do.
There's also this really good TED talk, not unrelated to game scams, but like just somebody going back and forth with a Nigerian prince for the money, and then
yeah, those are really classic.
Going deep into it, and every time there's a reply and it gets more ridiculous, and then the other guy is not fully aware that he's being scammed back. I love it.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. But yeah, no, all those things are funny until they actually happen to you and you fall for them. And I think that the problem there is that, some indie developers have very limited resources, budgets, and tools.
Especially around the time of release, when their priority is at fixing the game or making sure the build is bug-free.
Exactly.
The last thing on their mind is to spend hours, if not days, going through every single request and approving them.
Yeah, exactly. And that, especially maybe they don't... I believe there are maybe some platforms that can help you filter through those requests, or even receive those requests and just approve them in bulk.
And then even there... outside of the field of scams, there is really a lot of good practices I want to teach people. Because there's platforms like Keymailer, Lurkit, Press Engine. They all have their own pitfalls, and I think one of the advantages I have is I've used all of them as a creator as well, so I know how they can be abused, if you'd like to call it that. Because Woovit is also one of those platforms, for example, and they actually kind of not force you, but it's really tempting to abuse that platform, because they will say you can request a code, and then they will say you can request 2 more codes, and then it will say if you upload coverage for one of those 3 games you've requested, your quota of 3 will reset. And even me, as somebody who dearly loves indie games, fell into that trap of let's request that one game I'm going to cover anyway, and I get to request 2 free keys. Obviously not to sell them, but in my case, I usually went for some quick Xbox achievement kind of type games or something. Or before, when I just started my creator channel in 2017, I would ask 1 or 2 codes to give away. And at that point, also to follow that developer. But currently, my ethical practices are much better, and I would check with the developer and say, can I please have a key? And it is to give away, and I will include it in my 7 days of indies thing. But back then I didn't, and then that's just like the upfront way that tool is meant to be used. But then obviously you will have people going to such places like Keymailer, Press Engine, all of those platforms, and they will not create just one account, but they will create 100 of them. And they all look legit because those platforms, they don't have the time. It's usually people create their account on it. They log on with their Twitter account, their YouTube account, their Twitch account, which is all connected. It reads their data and it just sees green numbers. Ooh, this account has been growing. It gets lots of replies and views and clicks and must be up and above. And that's as far as that goes. And without any human, like PR, publisher, or press, or a developer flagging that person as, wait, something is wrong here, the system will never know because there is no easy way to go through all of those things.
Yeah, and that is one of the problems. Like, as you mentioned, there are a lot of bad practices online when it comes to just sharing keys or reviewing keys. But even just creators, sometimes it might be that they I've heard this before, like some indie developers who share keys with creators and then they just don't really cover that, and so you don't know where those keys end up being, and hopefully they don't end up being resold. But unfortunately, we know that can happen, and especially with these scams, as you mentioned, like that is, I suppose, that is the main purpose of these scammers, to just get those keys and put them on the gray market and just make some profit off of them. There you go.
The first post I made that went kind of viral was because I saw somebody selling a code of ours, and I knew it was coming through us because it was a PlayStation code for the game Hidden Through Time 2. And that game wasn't out yet on consoles.
Right.
So I knew the key had to have come from me. I tried to ask Kinguin, I think it was on, to give me the code, like just the final few digits. I didn't even need to have the full code. Like the final 4 would be enough to trace it back in my system. They didn't, obviously. So I used the other easy option that was to buy the game, which wasn't. Yeah, but it wasn't that expensive. I don't recall the retail price of the game, but let's say it was like 15 for the game new.
Okay.
And I bought it for like €6. And by the way, this is a good tip as well for all of the developers listening. You can just buy those keys and then request your money back because they don't work. Because you're dealing with a scammer. It's not like they have a legal reciprocation tactic or something to go like, no, this is legit. No, because they got their key in illegitimate ways. So you can just buy the key and then from that platform ask your money back, and then you have the key. Problem is, most developers don't really keep a tidy list of who did I send the key to and via what platform. And those key mailing platforms we talked about earlier don't make it that easy to like directly log one, because I need to take a few steps back there. If I send out a key to somebody by email, I will always in my spreadsheet have like person, outlet, email, and then the key that they have. So when I search for that key in the spreadsheet, I immediately know who requested it. The problem is with those key mailer platforms, you can go into their system and find who was assigned a key, but usually the spreadsheet I'm keeping isn't that clean, because I will just add like 50 keys to a key mailer platform at once. And then on the first row, I will add the name and the outlet of a person requesting one. But obviously, it doesn't mean that that specific key is the one assigned to them. But because I also keep a column that says given via, so either it would say Pirate PR, which is my own list, or it would say Press Engine, Lurkit, yada yada. So at least know where to go look for it, and then I can search that key in that platform and see who it is assigned to.
It's a great practice there, and
it takes time. It takes
time, of course. Yeah.
A lot of publishers won't go through this effort.
Of course,
developers who are too busy and don't have the time won't go through this effort because it takes time. Time is money, and it's also the reason why the work I do. If I just send out the press release, it's kind of cheap. But if I do that review package thing, it adds up quickly because I'm pretty much working full time for a full month for one title. And that's one of the things that is so time consuming. But it is of value because even for one game, finding these scammers, exposing them, bringing them to the daylight, I think if enough people do this, it will scare away other people from doing the same, or just even without public humiliation of like this person tried to sell a code, but just the fact that they are getting less and less keys because people are being more and more careful about who they're sending it to, will already make their business practice like less lucrative and hopefully make them reconsider.
Yeah, and I think what you're doing there is really valuable, and it creates a lot of value for indie developers pretty much everywhere. I would say, especially the solo devs, but we'll get there. So I'm curious though, when it comes to these scams and scammers, have you identified some specific patterns or types?
Tons, tons of them. Yeah. There's so many, but the thing is, you only see patterns when you see enough of them.
Yeah, of course.
There are some of these things that I've fallen for with the first titles I've worked on. The most obvious one now, for me it's obvious, but it's also the one most people still keep falling for, is a really recurring YouTube scam where somebody will say, they've gotten more greedy, and sometimes they will ask for 2 keys, but at the time it was usually just the one. And they will just say, I want to cover your game. I just want one title. We work with forms, and our forms used to be without like an explanation. So you just say name, outlet, and then the outlet would speak for itself, and those numbers looked good. I would go to that YouTube channel. I would see 22 or 32,000 followers. That's a good number.
Yeah, of course.
And then an average view count of like 6,000, 7,000 views per video, which is really good for me. So that person got a key from me. The problem I did was I didn't look at all of those videos, and I just saw the big green numbers. And it's only when I started noticing that for that very first project we sent out keys, that no coverage was coming out of it. And then I started seeing other people requesting, and it would be a different name every time, a different avatar, different URL, but something about it just kept feeling the same.
Yeah.
And that's one of those things I started listing up, like what are those red flags that are always the same? And for that YouTube scam, it's pretty much that URL always changes, because every couple of months they will change names, they will delete some videos. And if you go to tools like socialblade.com, you can even search that user's name, and immediately you'll see that the username you search is different from the one in the URL, because the one in the URL is the original name the account was created in. So that's the red flag number 1. And then an obvious one that you can only see on a tool like this is you'll see spikes going downwards in the amount of views. And you'll see like minus 6 million views or something, which is insane.
Okay.
And on a normal channel would never happen, but here it's just them bulk deleting all of their videos and then starting fresh as if they were a new channel.
Interesting.
Currently, a new trend in these is it's also it makes more money if they get 2 keys. So almost all of those channels, not all of them, but most of them, they will have some kind of description like me and my sister are reviewing games, me and my friend, me and my nephew. Sometimes they will even use sob stories like, oh, my dog died or something, like really that basic kind of stuff. But hey, you could make us happy by sending us a couple of keys to cover your game. And like, yeah, how would that make you happy? But whatever.
Yeah, but
I digress, but that was a literal example that happened.
That's terrible. That's like trying to pull on some emotional strings there, and some people might even be upset by these
they go
stories.
through lengths to appeal to you, because I'm from Belgium. And then I'll see those requests coming from people claiming to be from Belgium or the Netherlands, which are like neighboring countries, France, Germany. But when you actually click the video and you hear the voice, it's like an Eastern European accent. Something that isn't really in line with the nationality they were claiming to be on their YouTube channel.
Something feels off at that point.
And if you click multiple videos on the same channel, you'll hear it's not always the same voice, and it's not even just the 2 voices, but it's like 3 or 4, all Eastern European voices.
And obviously no faces, I suppose.
Never faces, gameplay that's been pre-recorded by someone else. What they are saying is about the game, but not in direct correlation to what's happening on screen.
Right, okay.
The same for the
elaborate.
comments. There will be lots of comments, but coincidentally, all of the comments have been added on that account like hours after posting the video. So not spread out over a couple of days, but like the video went live, everybody started posting at the same time. And then if you start reading those things, you'll see that they mention stuff that's just not correct for the video. Like it will be about that game because they are copy pasting them from other videos, but they are not using the same video content. So you'll see somebody say, like, for example, nice headshot and even tagging like minute 8 or something, and there's nothing even resembling a headshot happening at minute 8. Like oversights like that, but nobody goes through the effort of checking every video, every comment, and it's only when you start looking for them that you see those red flags.
Yeah, right. And it amazes me the kind of effort that they put into something like that when, you know, they could, of course, they could do
a job.
I mean, it's a huge job to just create an entire channel out of that, all the editing and redoing the whole thing every single time. I mean, it must really pay off really well, I suppose. But like,
yeah, that's why they're doing it in bulk right now, because even the step of selling a game code, it takes time. You need to upload the box art. You need to say, I'm selling this game. You have to set a price for it. It's not going to take you ages, but if you have 100s of keys that you scammed from people,
it's going to take you
suddenly
days.
A job to just create those listings on the reseller sites. Like, if you are applying all of that time and you're sitting behind your computer typing away on a keyboard anyway, just like do a real job instead
of... like if you can go through the lengths of doing that so methodically, I mean, just try and do something a little bit more legit, sake.
But they do have limits, like something that would convince me that, this person is real, would be clicking on their YouTube channel or their Twitch channel and seeing links to other platforms. Like their Twitch would link to their YouTube, and on their YouTube there would be links to their Twitter account, their Facebook account, like an entire social existence.
Yeah, like
would legitify it, but those scam accounts always have the just one platform. The numbers look good, but if you look past the numbers, it's really only just that.
Yeah, it's only numbers, and that what scams people, unfortunately.
Yeah. And then sometimes you'll even see them covering your game, and you're like, "Ooh, my game got 8,000 views," but it's not views.
It's not views, it's bots.
It's just empty numbers again.
Yeah, because at some point maybe they'll be like, "Oh yeah, this might be an appealing game" or something like that, or maybe they just get you off their tail, and they think, "Oh yeah, no, they covered it." You know, that's absolutely stupid. Well, not stupid, but that's terrible, honestly. So there are curators and possibly creators. There are key requests. Most of the scams are key requests. Are there any other types of scams in PR, or would you say it's mostly key requests?
Yeah, the biggest gist of it is key requests. I would assume there's also people to actually pretend that they are big creators and trying to get money out of it. But in 2.5 years, I haven't encountered them.
Okay.
Like, I'm sure this exists as well. But they might not be targeting PR agencies because I've never received those requests. Plus, I think it also helps that Pirate PR works with organic content only.
Yeah.
So as soon as somebody asks money from us to create content, that's fine, because people are entitled to making money for the work they put in. But it will never happen directly through us. And then I will just bring that offer to the developer, but I will give some advice to the developer, also saying, like, this person is asking that much. And I will give the developer some insights, like what they're asking is a reasonable amount, or like, I'm bringing this to you because I'm forced to, because it's just like, I got this offer, I have to bring it to you. But then if it's like a ludicrous amount of money, I will always say, like, you'll never see any return on investment on that kind of money.
Yeah, because
but I would assume there's also scammers that pretend to be the bigger person, the bigger creators, and then ask.
I'm sure there will be, especially if I think about all those influencer marketing agencies, or those even my agency where I work at. We do work with paid, and we do offer like maybe sponsored. Well, we do have contracts with influencers. Of course, outside of gaming, we have other kind of clients. But we do offer contracts to influencers and such. So you would imagine scammers trying to go to a smallish company or a smallish or a small developer and trying to scam them for money and being like, oh yeah, you know, I can do a sponsored video or sponsored branded content around your game, if you send me your game and such. But I suppose that would be, yeah, I don't know. I suppose that would be a little bit more complicated because they would have to be absolutely sure that those people can shed those amount of money.
Also, like if I was in the position of the developer in that case, I would protect myself by paying them through something like PayPal.
Exactly.
Where you can say that person never delivered the service they said they were going to do.
Yeah.
And the proof of I really did provide the service or the product is always at the person selling it.
Mm-hmm.
So PayPal will give you back your money if you can just flag that thing.
Yeah.
But obviously they will try and ask money in another way.
Friends and family
like, hey,
on PayPal, yeah. Or crypto, yeah, exactly. Yeah, wow. Yeah. But yeah, so, well, of course this has a very... it has a very important impact on developers, but especially I would say on solo developers who have maybe absolutely no understanding of what PR scams could be. Maybe they are approaching this for the first time and such. So yeah, like have you heard stories of like solo developers who have been impacted by these PR scams, and what are your thoughts on that and how they can deal with that?
Yeah, they've been impacted in the way that they are sending codes to these people and they are selling them. And that means that they didn't just lose money on the sale, because if that scammer sold the key, it means that the person on the other end was willing to spend money on it. And maybe at some point that would have been a sale for your game, even maybe not at the default asking price, but maybe if you're putting a discount on it later on. And then also maybe getting a bad review out of it or something. But yeah, it's also just the offense you'd feel as a developer that someone would do this to you. And then actually like that there's a business behind it and it was intentional. It's not like just they're doing it once, but they're doing it in such big numbers that you'd feel outraged, you'd feel hurt about it.
You feel outsmarted, like, oh yeah, how was I so dumb to fall for something like that? Yeah.
And then all of that YouTube scam was one thing we just talked about. There are others where it's just basically them not knowing about it. Like most people will have heard about the Steam Curator system.
Yeah.
But not everybody, and I'm surprised about how few developers know this, that there is actually a curator backend.
Yeah,
like
there is.
You can give people not a code, but via the curator backend, you can basically say this person or this curator gets to play my game without sending them a code. So there's no chance that they can sell your key, but they can still play the game. And then 90% of the scams happening around the release of a game is people just going like, I have this curator with 50,000 followers. Can you please send me a code of the game? But you should never send a key, like a Steam key that people can just copy paste to a curator by email, because you have that platform in the backend doing that for you in a safe way.
Yeah, I've received some keys through the curator backend. You don't receive a key.
It's just it appears in your library and you have a notification that you can play the game.
Yeah. If you accept it appears in your library, you can actually play it, but you don't have to copy and paste anything. So yeah, that's and then
even the worst thing here is, if you're familiar with curator reviews, they're pretty much just 1 or 2 paragraph max.
Yeah, there's a limit.
Reviews that's like really, really short. There's a limit to it. And then if those people are asking like, we would like to have 5 keys to discuss this with my crew, like, you need 5 opinions to form a 2-sentence review, really?
Yeah, exactly. Those are all things to think about. But yeah, I guess now we've talked about scams extensively and such. I think we can talk about some of your top tips for spotting these scams, maybe. Because you've seen a lot of these and you've worked with a lot of people who maybe have been affected by them. And also I'm also interested in the flip side, like, because you mentioned something interesting when we talked the first time, which sometimes it may not be a scam. It may be genuine. So what are some common signs and red flags and ways to streamline identifying these scams? I know we covered some of these already. Anything that you can share in a bit of a more structured way. And also when it may not be a scam, and how to make sure that you are absolutely 100% sure that that person is legit. Like,
let's start with that one actually.
Once, which I think
let's start with that one. Like, how can you tell if a person is legit? And then the most surefire way to do this is to just watch the content. It's also the most time-consuming thing. But if a YouTuber is requesting a code, watch some of their videos. Sometimes it's even coming from a legit creator with a legit email. But then you don't want to send them a code because they are a Roblox only or a Grand Theft Auto 5 only channel, suddenly asking a key to a puzzle game. Like, what would make your indie puzzle game the first game to break their streak of only covering that one specific title? It's just not gonna happen.
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't know if I should categorize those people as scams. I think I should. But they're clearly not requesting that key to cover your game.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also something I see more often right now on Lurkit because there's not really a rating system behind it there.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see like, hey, this person's rating is like 0 out of 5 stars. There's nothing like that on there. Whereas on Press Engine and Keymailer, you do have this green stars thing that gives you some idea of like what percentage of keys that these people get do they actually create content for. But even then, there's like, you can sometimes clearly see that it's the only intention was to get more keys. Might not even be for reselling, might be for building their own Steam library. But you will see, especially on Twitch, you'll see people requesting a ton of codes for different games. And if you're a PR agency like me on Press Engine or some other platforms, the pattern you'll see there is that on the same day, you'll get a request for all of the games you're representing from the same person. So they just entered the platform and suddenly they want to cover all 20 of my games, even though some are on VR, some's like Dungeons and Dragons, tabletop related, the other one is something completely different, but they want a code for all of it. And then if you go look at those channels, and sometimes they will have a good coverage rating even, like they will have the 3 green stars thing. But then you see that they have a Twitch channel and they have no cam, no mic. They went live for for an hour, 20 minutes, and they covered 8 games in that time. And it's just like playing 10 minutes of every game and then going to the next one, to the next one, to the next one. And then like, okay, I did my work. But again, that's the reason why I say always look at the content of the people that you're giving codes to, because even if that legitimately turns into content, what value does a 1 hour video that plays 8 games and just has like no commentary, no mic, let's play a game for a couple of minutes and move on to the next, to the next, to the next? It's not going to turn into wish lists or sales of your game.
Yeah,
ever.
Totally. It also,
so that's just like a human element to go through.
Yeah, it's also unlikely these days that videos with no commentary will get any traction because people relate with creators online.
And then the irony there is I have a YouTube channel of my own.
Yeah,
guess what? There's no cam and there's no mic. But that's like 1 hour of gameplay, and also flagged as such like no commentary, first hour gameplay or something. And then the weird thing is I request codes as a creator and I get them and I create this content. And sometimes I will see like spikes of some videos going into the thousands of views. Usually they hover around like 100. But the thing is, I myself would not easily give myself a code based on the content I create because the content isn't original enough.
Yeah, I guess it has some value, because if you are someone who's already gone through all the process, all the marketing funnel and everything that we can think about when it comes to just making a purchasing decision, and you're about to make the purchasing decision, and you're right there, you need that last bit to convince you. Maybe you want to look at just the first hour of gameplay of something, just skip around with no commentary, just to see exactly what the game is like. It has happened to me maybe that sometimes I've just seen like raw gameplay without a creator behind it, because it was like, okay, will I get this game now or not? Will I get it tomorrow? So maybe there is an audience for it. Evidently there is, if you're getting spikes in those videos.
Yeah, especially the children-aimed content. Like, I have 2 young children of my own, and I'm in the Outright Games program, so I get games aimed at children from like Paw Patrol or also some like Disney games, and those really went into the millions for me.
Yeah, here you go. Yeah. Wow.
Actually, even funny story there, I lost a client on this because they found out, it's not that hard to find out, you look Pirate PR, you see my Twitter account, I have the Bloody Good Reviews Twitter account, that's linked to my YouTube, and then there was this one game, like a survivors with a boat, like pirate themed even, where you're a pirate ship that can upgrade and you can shoot other ships attacking you. And they said like, no, I think it's weird because we saw your channel and you have like Peppa Pig content on your own YouTube channel. And I had to explain to that person like what I do for that Bloody Good Reviews thing as a hobby is totally separate from my
it's completely
activities
different
from
from
Pirate
PR.
PR. And even then, I don't see why covering a kids game
Yeah.
would scare you off from it. But fair enough.
Yeah, no, well, I didn't find it, honestly, when I was just trying to get in touch, so it is definitely very separate. I did wonder on Discord why you showed up as bloody good reviews, but I didn't look into it.
That's my username, and I still actually do review games. I've been into a discussion with someone else from the press recently, like, is it ethically correct to still review games if you're in PR?
I suppose
But obviously,
so.
I would never cover my own
Exactly.
games.
If so long
And
as
I
you
tried-
keep it, yeah, so long as you keep it
And I
ethical,
try to
fine.
cover the ones like that. Obviously, will not happen. Like recently, Neva from Devolver Digital. Chances of me working for Devolver are pretty slim. It would be cool, but it's not gonna happen tomorrow. And then I still like the process of reviewing a game because it keeps me in tune with what other people are saying, how they review games, and also really vital skill is playing a game and fake reviewing it before other people do so, and then giving that feedback to the developer and saying, here are the things people will struggle with, and if you can still fix that before release, or rather before people get to play this build that you're trying to send out, it will do a lot of good for your average rating.
Right. Yeah. Well, I guess common sense is the key word here. So long as you keep it ethical.
For everything, it is the most rare and best of superpowers.
That's true. Yeah, and
common sense and patience.
And of course, we mentioned those cases in which it may not be a scam, but like, what else? What other red flags, common signs can people see and spot when it comes to identifying these scams? You think?
Well, one we didn't cover yet is emails.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the actual email look legit,
mm-hmm.
but the person it's coming from, but this is the most obvious one from the book, but still easy to overlook sometimes, is that they will contact you from an email address that's just slightly different from the one that's displayed online on their YouTube, for example. And for example, if my email address would be robby@piratepr.com or something, they would have something like robby@pireta.com, or like just switching two letters around, or replacing one character with a special character version of it else. Like you all know the capital L, lowercase I, well, the other way around.
Yeah.
But that kind of trick that happens all of the time. So yeah, that's also key to keep in mind. And especially if it's coming from press, chances that somebody from professional press is going to reach out to you via an Outlook or Gmail address is relatively slim, especially if it's a bigger outlet like Games Radar. Like, always check if it comes from like @FutureNet.
Yeah.
Even though, and I almost fell for this trap really recently because I was checking the emails on my phone. And on your phone, you don't see automatically the from. You just see the name it's coming from.
Mm-hmm.
So I just saw from Games Radar. The body of the email looked legit. But it was only when replying to it that I saw the email address. And I thought, oh shit, it's somebody trying to scam me.
Right.
I almost fell for it.
All right. Okay. Yeah,
so
well,
it still happens a lot.
Yeah, because you can change the from name and all of that. Yeah, it's. But yeah, that's a good tip there. And if you're really unsure, I suppose just copy the tail of the email and see if it opens a legit website. Chances are it won't.
For creators specifically, a good tip for developers here is if it happens and somebody is an imposter is trying to fake that they're a big creator. My trick here is to just contact that big creator via their actual email address, the one that's listed on their YouTube or their other platform. And you can just put the faker in CC or in included there if you want. And just say, hey, just in your email, don't assume wrong intentions unless it's really clear, like the fake email is just two words flipped around and you know it's intentional. But sometimes you will have, for example, somebody reaching out to you and the email would be firstname@agency.com or something. And that's the email they list on their YouTube channel. But they're contacting you via an Outlook or a Gmail or something. And it can be legit because sometimes they want to circumvent the process of including their agency, or they just want to create content without being paid for it. It happens very frequently even. That just like, oh, I want to have this game, I want to create content for this, and I want to be amongst the first to create content for it. I don't need to be paid. That they will reach out to you. But if you don't have their email on record, you need to find a way to find out if that email is legit. And that's usually by either emailing the actual email, Or another trick I frequently use on something like YouTube would be replying to their latest video with my own account and just saying like, "Hi, this is Robby from Pirate PR. If I'm not mistaken, we were in contact by email just now, but could you please reply to this to make sure that you are actually you?" And then there they can at least validate the request.
Okay.
So that's also one way to get around it.
Yeah.
And then the nice thing is, and this happened a few times for me already, is when I'm using this approach, like contacting the actual email address and putting the fake email address in there, that they would be outraged as well and go like, "No, that's not me. They're pretending to be me, and just delete these people and never work with them again." Obviously, we'll do that. But then sometimes they'll go like, "But now that I look at your game, that's a pretty cool game you've got there. Do you have a code for it?" And then obviously we don't say no. So use that negative as a win.
Yeah, no, that's great advice there. Yeah, well, I think we talked about scams for a long time, nearly 40 minutes. I think for the last 10 minutes of this episode, we can talk a little bit about challenges and best practices in PR for indie developers. We won't spend too long on it. I know we have a list of points that I had in mind, but I think we'll just either ignore some of them or just speed through them. So I mean, from what I know, as my experience as being a former journalist, even game journalist, a long time ago, I think I know what kind of challenges indies might have, and I think you'll agree. I think there's a lot of competition for media attention, right? Right now, there was a lot already 10 years ago, but there's even more right now. There's fewer outlets because outlets close by the day. There's fewer journalists because journalism doesn't pay anymore. And sadly, there's a lot of competition for media attention. That means journalists will be swamped with press releases, swamped with requests by PR people. And so it's harder and harder to just cut through. So I think what we can talk about is I feel like there will be some misconceptions around PR when it comes to helping indie developers. Maybe some people think it's too expensive. Maybe some people think it's not worth the effort. So what are your thoughts on that? And based on your experience, do you have any suggestions for indie developers? And we can keep this very free form in terms of a discussion.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah.
Well, I think by doing PR, and with this I mean sending out press releases and reaching out to them, you're already a leg up on the competition with, like, there's dozens of games releasing every day, but most of them don't go through the effort of actually reaching out to people. Mm-hmm. They just make their game, hit the release button, and then start working on the next game. You'd be surprised how big of a percentage of games releasing this actually is, where it's, I'm not going to say shovelware because some games are legit good, but there's also obviously the ones that will just make the same template game 100 times and then just keep releasing them to flood the market with them. But just doing that work, sending out a press release or getting in touch with creators one-on-one or press people one-on-one, that's already doing more than the majority of people are doing. So do try that. There are cheap ways to testing out the waters with PR. We have even a format of sending out a press release that the developer themselves write for just like 450 euros, which is a lot cheaper than what most other agencies do. But they're basically buying access to my list of contacts, and then I send it out, but I still do some changes to it to give that press release the best possible chance, because not everybody is an equally good copywriter, and sometimes they forget about obvious things. Like, you'd be surprised how many developers send me a press release without linking to their Steam page once. Like, really obvious oversights, but for them, because it's not something they do every day, exactly, they look over it and they fall into that loop, that trap. And then the thing is, like you said, you will have a lot of people vying for attention. There's multiple ways to go around this. It's picking a good time to send out. Like for me, this is just A/B testing over 2 years. Tuesday mornings in Europe and Thursday mornings in Europe are my sweet spot. Yeah. I constantly have to fight this with developers where they are going like, no, it's common sense that you need to send in the evening between 7 and 8 because that's when the US wakes up. And I'm usually screenshotting to these people my inbox as a creator, where I go like, yeah, that's true. Here's my inbox around 7 p.m. at night, where 30 emails arrived around the same minute. Do you want to be one of those 30, or do you want to be the first one they read every day?
Yeah. Exactly,
And then
because
also
people go online and look for advice,
Yeah.
and they'll all find the same advice, so they would just try and follow
exactly.
it. Yeah.
And you see this, and I'm one of the people giving the same advice to everyone. And then at some point you'll start seeing trends, like on Steam. One of those advices was release on a Monday morning on Steam, because then you'll be in the popular and upcoming if you make it, and if you have wish lists on Steam, you'll be in there the entire weekend because Steam doesn't update over the weekend. And that was a good tip until everybody started doing it. And then suddenly Monday was the busiest day to release in because everybody read that tip and they all told each other about it. And now it's a busy, crowded moment.
Yeah,
but still one I advise, because launching on a Monday gives you an entire work week to deal with problems that may arrive.
Yeah.
There's the human element there as well. If you're launching on a Friday evening, your weekend is gone.
Yeah, and well, a Friday evening is bad for two reasons. One, your weekend is gone. Second, a lot
AAA.
of AAAs, for some reason, launch on a Friday evening because they know, people are going to buy the game and play it over the weekend.
But even there, you see trends shifting, because Nintendo used to be one of those people always releasing on a Friday, and now they're always releasing on a Thursday.
Yeah.
Because they themselves see these patterns from the competition and other people. So it's a constant reaction and counter-reaction that's going to happen. The same with press releases. Again, it really helps that I get all of the press releases from competing is a hard word, but like other PR agencies, other publishers. I get all of these emails, so I know how they are communicating, when they are communicating, and then I can try to do other stuff. And that brings me to another point, that's just like trying being original.
Yeah.
Most people won't even look past the title of an email. So make sure that what your game is about, or the best thing about your game, is like, it should be the title of your game, and then the next word or 3 words should be why my game kicks ass, basically. Keep that in mind at all times. Be funny. Think of like a really good example recently was Rock Paper Shotgun covering one of our games, because I used the genre Dovecraftian. And it was a game, 10 Dead Doves, and it was Cthulhuan Lovecraft genre. So
that's my jam. I'm going to have to look into it.
And I was really surprised to see the guy from Rock Paper Shotgun mentioning this, like, in his article on the game. Like, the reason I opened this press release was because of that pun I read in the subject. Yeah. So like, yes, I have value.
Yeah.
And then one we're sending out really close, but I don't know when this is going live. But
early December, I think.
Okay, cool. So I'm behind it. End of November, we'll have a press release going out for a game called Spreadsheet.
Okay. Oh, right.
But cheat written as like cheat code.
Oh.
And but it plays in spreadsheets. So my original idea there was, why not write the press release in a spreadsheet instead of just a default rich text format? Let's slap it all into columns and make it look like it's
file.
Yeah, and just make it look like Windows from back in the day with old visual elements in there and stuff. And I hope it will be original enough for people to go like, but obviously they will only see it when they click it. But when they click it, it won't just be like, let's scroll through this. There will be some eye-catch moment there, like, this is different. And then hopefully they'll talk about this. And this is the thing I hope to achieve, is not just getting good press release out there, but my ideal situation is where not that a lot of people work next to each other still, but where somebody reads this and they go to their colleague, hey, did you see this? This is really cool. That's a unique idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Those are the things that make me get up in the morning and do what I do, like thinking of those tiny things.
And I can tell there's a lot of passion in what you do, which really does come through. And there's another aspect of PR which I think doesn't get talked about too much when it comes to these things, because a lot of people think that PR is press releases or sending out pitches for coverage, which is definitely that. But PR is also reputation management in a lot of ways.
Damage control.
And it's a big part of it, especially crisis management. That is a very bad part of it. So I'm thinking, imagine someone who has released a game already, but they're getting a lot of negative reviews. Maybe they're being either review bombed because maybe due to some themes in their game. Maybe like I think Coffee Caravan Witch is something like that. Recently, they had a lot of backlash because of how woke quote unquote, their game is.
Kind of approach, like you could pick what gender identity you had basically in that game, and then suddenly people see this as an offense.
Yeah, so you would get a lot of negative reviews for that because people can be idiots. And how do you manage public perception in that case? What do you think is the impact of negative reviews?
Obviously, in that specific case, the developers knew what kind of game they were making, and they were standing behind the product they made. So let the haters hate and let them just shout into their own echo rooms, because the product was not made for them. They were never going to buy it, and no amount of shouting they do will convince your core audience to change their mind.
Yeah.
In fact, it might even work in your advantage, because those people are saying negative things, and suddenly the people you're actually targeting rally as champions behind your product. So just take that in stride and use it as a positive, and then like double down on what you're doing if you really believe in your core values. See it as a strength. But there are some cases, a recent one where we even had to do some damage control ourselves, which was for Voxlands, and a lot of people were saying negative things in the YouTube video from IGN that was going pretty viral. Like, obviously, the developer was happy that the IGN picked it up, and it was getting lots of views. But people were giving all kinds of negative comments, and the developer was answering each and every one of them. And in some cases, like, oh, there's bad lag or something in this video. How do you put out a trailer with lag in it? And then the developer had a legit excuse saying that we rendered it on a bad computer, like on a laptop. But then I had to counter that, saying like, yeah, but that's not enough. That's not something that's going to convince someone to say like, okay, I forgive you, because it's kind of a mistake from you to have rendered it on a bad laptop. So don't engage with all of those people one by one. And I had him delete all of his email, all of his replies. I contacted my contact at IGN. I drafted a statement together with the developer that was answering all of the legit things that the people in the comments were going through, and just like one blanket reply, putting this at the top and asking my contact at IGN, can you please pin it like as a reply from the developer? And that really turned into a positive, because suddenly people were understanding the struggles they were going through. They were suddenly realizing that, oh, this is a game still early in development, but we get to play the demo right now, and then we can see if it runs better on our high-end computer. Like, that's a positive.
And you're not going to convince everyone who just left a negative comment, because some people just have an opinion and then they become biased. But at the same time, you will convince new people who see that, go to the comment section, and they're like, oh, wait, there's a reply from the developer. Oh, wait, actually, that sounds reasonable. So, yeah, why not? I'll give it a shot. Sounds interesting otherwise. So, yeah, that's really good approach there, and really good and measured way to handle things, because if you let yourself be guided by your emotions and your first impact, then your first instinct, then
it's not good to be too defensive and actually think of like, why are multiple people saying the same thing? Maybe they have a point. Obviously, internet warriors are not going to bring that point to you in a nice way. But the message behind it might still be valuable for you to look at what you are doing and make the product better after it.
So, and there's another point that you said. I think you mentioned, you implied it, but I think it's an important thing for people to consider when you said not everybody can be a good copywriter, or when you said that people sometimes even forget to include the Steam link in their press release. That is because, it's hard to think like a journalist or to think like a PR person when all you want is just focus on your game. So I think there is potentially a gap in skill, or a skill gap, when it comes to developers handling PR by themselves, and maybe they can feel overwhelmed by all of the things that they have to do. My personal advice would be read something like the BBC, not because it's the pinnacle of game coverage, but because it can teach you, read it analytically, because it can teach you how a journalist structures news. And you can see that usually the most important bit is at the top, and then it cascades down in the so-called inverted pyramid.
The about the game, the key features, while important to always include, you shouldn't list everything that you want to say about your game in a wall of text all at the front. You have to break it down into sections and keep your own call to action in mind, and really hammer down on that and focus on this. if you're talking about your new trailer and you want people to watch your new trailer, maybe you shouldn't also ask them to check out the discount or check out the DLC, or like, don't ask. This is usually also advice I give to people who are exhibiting at a physical expo with their game. Like, pick one single call to action,
yeah.
Or the inverse, ask the person who's coming to play your game who they are, and then base your call to action on that. Because if they say, I'm press, your call to action will be, please put your name here to be on our press list. But if they're saying, I'm just a gamer, it enters into the, hey, don't you want to wishlist our game? Call to action.
Yeah, that's
and that happens in press releases as well. Just break it down into sections, keep it digestible. Scroll through it like diagonally and see where your own eyes are guided. And then one of the most important things is, like, would you want to read your own press release?
Yes, that is
not just
really
information
important.
And get the information out there, but is it entertaining? Is it informational? Do people who read the press release top to bottom, do they know what your game is about? Because some
does it
people
convey your personality and all that? Yeah.
I would say games that have like the best title ever, like Parkour was one we worked on ourselves, and it was one of the examples where the developers themselves sent through the press release, and I was like, no. Like, you have the cool concept, a cool title, but the press release is like matter-of-factly just stating facts and listing the same stuff you read in everything else. Like, play with this. You have a dog as a main character.
Yeah.
Like, there should be a sniff, bark, howl reference in every paragraph, at least.
Yeah, probably because it was written by a technical person, and developers can be very matter of fact. But
that's the second time when I gave this feedback, they themselves managed to give me a draft that went through almost unedited by me, by only adding a little bit of things here and there. But the second take on it was already really well done. But some of those developers write their own press releases. I have to tell them, like, it should read like somebody's really passionate about this, not like you're forced to do a book report in front of the class. That's not the vibe you're willing to go for here.
Yeah, and also trust that the press release is just one part of your story. You will have a trailer, you will have maybe coverage from other creators at some point. Like, you will have maybe demos, you will have images, screenshots, and all of that. You will have your social accounts. So yeah, you can tell certain things in the press releases, the most important things, but all your other content will tell the rest of the bigger picture. And yeah, that is very sound advice. Okay, Robby. Well, I think we are near the end. There's only one more thing that I want to ask you, and that is one question from one of my Patreons, because I asked my patrons if they had something to ask you. Of course, you can go to patreon.com/theindiediarist if you want to check all the tiers and such. But my patrons have access to have exclusive access to posts where they can ask questions to special guests in advance. And in this case, I have Peleg, who's just this year he has published his game Exodus, which is a puzzle game. It's a very nice and interesting puzzle game, explores very great dynamics, and I think he's moving on to the next game right now. And he asks you, how would you recommend testing the waters and checking how well a game would do PR-wise before committing to developing it? Would you create fake gameplay videos? Could you create a mini version of the game and give it out for free? He mentioned he thinks Superhot started this way, which might be true. I haven't verified that, but it might be true. So what is your advice for people who are just starting to brainstorm their next game?
Well, if you're talking press releases and PR, I think that's probably too soon to get involved with this, because ideally we're sending people to some place. Like, you're trying to get wish lists out of it. At later points, trying to get sales out of it. But if there's no Steam page because there's no game yet, then the only thing you can get out of it is views. But where are those views going? Well, they'll stay on whatever platform the press is writing about. Like, sure, it's cool if you'll get millions of views on your game on IGN.com, but if there's no click-through, like those people have nowhere to go because it doesn't exist yet, then you have a problem. You want those kind of numbers on your own channel, and then in that case, that could be your own YouTube channel or something. But for me and for my clients, usually that's been Twitter. It could be other social media like Threads or Blue Sky or whatever. But for me, that's usually been Twitter, where I ask people, like, test your idea on Twitter And then just a new account with 50 followers at a random Wednesday or something, that's not going to do anything. So pick a good time. There used to be this pitch a game, if you're familiar with it. It used to happen every month. So that was a good moment every month to do it. Currently, it's only twice a year. It's in June and in November. Still a really good moment to do it. But if you're like in the let's make some quick different versions of games and some vertical slices, or not even that, like prototypes, it might be a long wait, but it's still a good moment because no matter how tiny you are, people are clicking that hashtag, that pitch your game hashtag. And that same thing doesn't happen anymore. Wishlist Wednesday, Screenshot Saturday, Trailer Tuesday, those were all like hashtags that people were actively engaging with every week. And they have all died down because people started spamming them and then creating threads with other people, replying in them. And suddenly you're just seeing the same creators being at the forefront of getting their views on those social media, no longer being about the games themselves. Exactly, but that pitch your game is a really good one. And then another one is maybe if you have a really specific genre of game, you can still find some of these things that happen that are really genre specific. Like Adventure Game Friday is one of those things. Or you can start your own, but then you would have to convince other people to also file in line. But yeah, my first idea there would be is test the idea on social media. Try and get something playable as early as possible. If you don't have a Steam page, you can create a free itch.io page for it and have people play there. But yeah, it's going to be difficult just convincing people with a gray box where cubes are bouncing around a ball, because why would they spend their time doing that if they can play something polished that's also free or that's also easily accessible these days?
Okay, well then I think that's a brilliant answer. And again, thank you so much, Robby. I don't think I thanked you before, but thank you so much for a beautiful episode and a nice conversation together. This was a lovely little episode around scams in PR and also challenges and best practices. I think my listeners will take a lot of, we'll have a lot of key takeaways, and we'll find a lot of insightful things in this episode. I think it's time for some final words from you. So where can other people find you? And if they do, what is the best way to support you?
They can find me on the website. piratepr.com is pretty easy. And then most of the things I've covered today, I have a treasure trove. It's basically our blog where I write about stuff. And I have tons of ideas still in the pipeline that I should really start writing about, but I don't have the time. But the idea is to make a landing page where people can just, like, everything I'm preaching, instead of having to type it out every time from scratch, to actually be able to just go like, here's a URL for this question, here's a URL for this question. That will help me in the end as well. That's one place. And then I also talk about all of these things on Twitter. I keep calling it Twitter, never the other thing.
Yeah, I'm starting to call it X instead of Twitter, and I regret it. Like, I need to go back to calling it Twitter because it's
a tweet, a retweet, and Twitter.
Yeah, no, always going to be that.
Guy says, yeah.
But yeah. Okay, and of course I'll put all of the links to your socials and website in the description of the episode so people can find you easily. But yeah, on behalf of the entire indie community, I suppose, thank you for all the education work that you're doing around scammers and PRs. And also thank you for helping indie developers getting their game out there and just finding eyeballs for their dream game, hopefully, because I know it's not easy and I know it's a big challenge. But yeah, wishing you the best of luck with Pirate PR, and I will definitely follow all of the games that you're working on right now with your clients. So yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
It was nice talking to you.
Oof, and that's a wrap on Footnote number 7 with Pirate PR. What an amazing episode. Thank you so much, Robby, for being an incredible guest. And, you know, I was so engaged throughout the entire conversation. I loved this little bonus episode. I should do more of the footnotes. I just love them. And I have one more idea for the beginning of the year, and I hope that's going to come to fruition. So please keep an eye out on my social media channels because you might find updates and see updates if that one is ever coming. So yeah, and about that, you can, of course, well, first of all, remember to support Robby by following him on social media. He always shares incredible stuff, incredible tips and advice on PR for indie game development, and that is something that I know a lot of listeners and just game developers in general, especially solo devs, struggle with a lot when it comes to resources, budget, and just marketing in general when it comes to their dream game and or any project that they're developing, really. So yeah, make sure to follow Robby because he's constantly sharing a lot of great stuff. And if you want to support the show, you can, well, of course, subscribe to the show on your podcast platform of choice, but you can also go on theindiediaries.com and find all of my links, such as Twitter, Threads, Blue Sky now, and the Discord server, and a lot more. You can also support the show monetarily, which is always appreciated, by going to patreon.com/theindiediarist. So yeah, that would be it for me. But of course, if you're an indie game developer yourself, please get in touch, because I would love to feature you in my Indie Diaries, which is the main content stream of the show. And about that, next episode is going to be Indie Diary number 60, the last episode of the year before we start 2025 with a lot more exciting guests and a lot more exciting plans for the year ahead. So yeah, I'll speak to you in Indie Diary number 60.